Yesterday, EA dropped the Sights and Sounds deep dive for College Football 25, and it was awesome with a bunch of good information. Today, they dropped the top offenses and top defenses in College Football 25, and let's just say it's a little interesting to say the least. On top of that, last night we got our first look at Ultimate Team cards for College Football 25, so we're going to touch on that as well. And then lastly, Matt Brown had an update about rosters for this video game, so we're going to talk about all of that in this video. So here are the top 10 offenses in College Football 25. So the first thing to note in the bottom right, you can see that rankings are subject to change. So that goes for the offense and the defensive rankings. So if you see something you don't agree with in these rankings, it might be changed by the time the game comes out or later in the game with an update. With that being said, I don't know how in the world Miami, Colorado, and Clemson are all top 10 offenses. You're trying to tell me that Colorado and Ohio State have equal offenses? That's just complete blasphemy. Clemson hasn't had a good offense since Trevor Lawrence left. Clearly they have an elite defense, but their offense has struggled ever since Trevor Lawrence left to the NFL. So I definitely don't agree with Miami, Colorado, and Clemson being up there. Now, something to note about these overalls, and this goes for offense and defense, there's only a few teams over 90 overall. And this is consistent with the older NCAA football games. You normally only had a few teams over 90 overall, and you normally only had a few players like high 90s. So you're really only going to have a handful of guys that are higher than like 96, 97 overall. And you're only going to see a few teams crack the 90s when it comes to their overall ranking. Here is the rest of the top 25 offenses. I think Ole Miss is definitely too low. Lane Kiffin typically has a pretty good offense. Plus, they kind of killed it in the transfer portal. I think they should probably be top 10. USC at 25 makes no sense. I think USC should probably at worst be top 15. Lincoln Riley has never had a bad offense in his life. Obviously, defense is an issue, but offense should definitely be higher than 83 overall, in my opinion. Someone please tell me how Tennessee and Michigan couldn't crack the top 25 offenses. I feel like Heupel has proven at Tennessee that he's going to have a pretty good offense. And even though Michigan's probably going to take a step back with no Harbaugh and a lot of players leaving in the portal or to the NFL, still, I mean, it's going to be a very good team. They should easily be a top 25 offense. But these are just my opinions. And again, these rankings are subject to change. So let's head over to the defenses now. Again, you'll see only 7 teams get to 90 overall defensively. I was honestly surprised Georgia's not the number 1 defense. And I do think these defensive rankings are better than the offensive rankings, but wait till you see 11 through 25 because I think there are some pretty egregious things in that part. But the biggest snub from the top 10, in my opinion, is Iowa. I think they should probably be top 5. Iowa somehow managed to win 10 games last year, and they averaged 15 points per game offensively. That was second to last in the FBS. So they literally had like a bottom 5 offense in the country and still won 10 games. They were ranked nationally. The only way you can win 10 games with that bad of an offense is if your defense is elite. So again, I think Iowa should be top 5. So here's 11 through 25 for the top defenses. And like I said, I think overall these top defenses are probably better than the top offenses. However, there's a few absolutely egregious ones here on the top defense. The 3 that I think are just absolutely out of pocket are USC, Colorado, and North Carolina. USC is rated as the 16th best defense in this game at 86 overall. Colorado has the 20th best defense, and UNC has the 23rd best defense. They are both 84 overall. This past season, North Carolina finished 94th overall in total defense, USC finished 116th, and Colorado finished 127th. And obviously, I know teams can improve, teams can also take a step back. Lincoln Riley finally got rid of Alex Grinch at defensive coordinator. But to say these 3 teams all have a top 25 defense is absolutely insane. I mean, last year, USC and Colorado had a bottom 25 defense, and then UNC was probably like bottom 40. The Colorado glazing has got to stop. They are so severely overrated. USC's offense was rated 83 overall, and their defense is 86 overall. I mean, that's not even an opinion. That's just completely wrong. In no world should USC's defense be rated higher than their offense. They gave up like 34 points per game last year. And the same thing with UNC. I feel like their offense, at least last year, was significantly better than their defense. Part of me almost wonders, like, is EA just trolling to get clicks? Like, they know these are wrong, it's subject to change, and this is just like a marketing tactic so people talk about the game. That is possible, and it honestly wouldn't be a bad idea. But yeah, some of these rankings are just not very good. Somehow Tennessee managed to not be a top 25 offense or defense, and they weren't in the top 10 for the toughest places to play, even though Neyland Stadium is probably one of the best places in the country. So clearly the developers just don't like Tennessee. But anyway, at the end of the day, it's not like a massive deal, especially if you're playing Dynasty mode, because these rankings are going to, go up and down depending on what happens in your dynasty. It's cool that we finally got to see some overalls, and we're going to get the team power rankings tomorrow, so that'll just be like the straight up overall for the team, and we'll see who are the best teams in this game. We can kind of already guess, Georgia, Ohio State look like they're probably going to be 1 and 2. Bama's going to be up there, Texas, Oregon, so we'll see what the list looks like. Moving on, let's talk about what Matt Brown had to say about roster updates for College Football 25. So he said, sources tell me that athletes will be informed today if their likeness will be used in EA Sports College Football 25 at launch. EA is including 85 players per roster, but substantially more athletes opted into the deal. So I'm sure that'll be exciting for a lot of players to get the email or whatever to know if they're in the game. That'll be pretty cool for them. But like he said, not every single player that opted in will actually be in the game. I think over 14,000 players opted in, and I think only 11,000 or so are going to be included. So continuing in the thread, he said, I'm told that rosters will be updated multiple times over the course of the season, and that EA expects and has budgeted for to include athletes who are not in the game at launch depending on performance during the season. So a player who isn't in today could be in the future. Examples of players who might not be in the game at launch include walk-ons, true freshmen who just got to campus because you can't opt in without being formally enrolled, and players who simply didn't turn in the paperwork. But regular future updates could include those players later. So Matt Brown has reported about this before, and we've talked about it before. It's super cool that we're going to get roster updates throughout the life cycle of this game. So like if a player starts playing really well, they can bump up their overall, or if a player starts playing bad, they can bump it down. Or if you're like a walk-on or a true freshman or just somebody that's not high up on the depth chart right now and you're not in the game at launch, but if you ball out and move up the depth chart and you start getting more playing time, then EA can add you later into the game with an update. So again, this is super cool. We didn't have this in previous NCAA football games, and this really isn't like the NFL where, it's a smaller group of players and you know who's going to be good and who's not going to be good. In college football, there's so many players. There's always those random guys you've never heard about, and they ball out and maybe like they're a Heisman finalist or they just have a really good year. Now we can have those guys added to the game at a later date after launch. Now the last thing I wanted to touch on is that the College Football Ultimate Team Twitter account posted this video right here. And yesterday they said to pre-order the deluxe version by tomorrow to get the Heisman Hopeful Pack, and you get to select one of these players, which means I think today is the last day to get this if you pre-order the deluxe edition. So if you are interested, you should go ahead and pre-order today. But here you can see 5 different Ultimate Team cards. It is Carson Beck, Caleb Downs, Zachariah Branch, Will Johnson, and Ashton Gelati. And they said that the player ratings will come out in July, so these aren't the actual ratings for these players. And if you're not familiar with Ultimate Team, the overalls for the players vary depending on how good the card is that you have. And I know a lot of y'all don't care too much about Ultimate Team, but it's still cool to see the cards for the first time. I'm going to try out the game mode. I've said it before, Ultimate Team by itself is a cool idea. It's a really fun idea. It's not inherently bad, but EA kind of ruins it with the pay-to-win system. So we'll just have to see how it is in College Football 25. I do really want to see the college football legends like Johnny Manziel, Lamar Jackson, Tim Tebow, Desmond Howard, all of those guys, so that'll be pretty cool. But that'll basically do it for this video. We've gotten a ton of information this week, and we should get the overall power rankings tomorrow, which will just be the team straight up overall, not the offensive or defensive overall, but just their straight up team overall, so that'll be cool to see. So follow me on Instagram at Bring NCAA Back. I post everything there first. Also follow me on Twitter. I started posting on there. It's the same username as my YouTube, just Tubby Light. And then subscribe here on YouTube as well if you are enjoying the content.